Hi guys, in this video I finally got my hands on a Lord of Battle.
Scruffy Crow.
Okay, so I've been hunting eBay to try and get a bit of a bargain on one of these, and finally I did. He's certainly seen better days. I think there's a bit of wear on his nose there. He's been pinned and glued together rather badly, and I think the paint job could be better. So I'm out in the garden, as you may have noticed, and we have my acetone-free nail polish remover and a Lucky Salsa jar. So I think you can guess where that's going. Look at that in there. This has only been in for a few seconds, and already you can see that the paint is creasing and blistering. So yeah, that's not going to give me any trouble. I'll still leave that in there for a few hours though, and I'll come back to it and we'll see what we can do. Okay, these guys have been in the jar for 8 hours now, and as you can see the colour has definitely changed. I took it apart earlier. Let's see what the glue looks like. See, that was solid super glue, and now it's just super goo. This is the sort of lower torso bit, and yeah, the paint is just coming straight off, like no work at all. Oh, that fell off. So it's not going to take me long to clean up all these bits. See, this is all where the big huge lumps of glue were on his shoulders. As you can see, that's also just come straight off. Also, I noticed this guy had a purity seal, and I assumed it was plastic. Purity seal on a demon engine seems like an odd choice, but it turns out it's metal. So I'll probably still clean that up, and it might get used for something imperial in the future. Okay, so there's all the various bits cleaned up and looking almost as good as new. And I'm going to go around now and take off all this sort of flash and mould lines and just clean up all the separate parts before we put them back together. Okay, now for the best bit of doing anything like this. I'm going to pop this guy back together. So we've just got some standard industrial strength. Super glue off of eBay, and a few of these bits I'm just going to glue straight back, such as the wheels. Now actually, look, these wheels are very wonky. I wasn't expecting that. I thought it'd be a snugger fit. So I'm actually going to bust out a little bit of my green stuff out of my little tin. In the meantime though, I'm going to just quickly glue the torso, which I just flattened off with a file, onto the sort of middle part here. And this has got sort of 5 skulls around the ring there, and I think they line up with the skulls on here. Like so. So I'll leave that to dry and we'll get the wheels put on. Here's my green stuff mixed up, all nice and sticky. And we're just going to use tiny amounts. I'm just going to pop that in the, smaller than that. Pop that in the hole in the wheel, and in the other one, and then we've still got a bit of glue residue around the axle and in the hole, so I'm going to put this on upside down initially and rotate that round, so I'm trying to hide the sprue connections at the bottom. And there we go, what was a wobbly wheel has now got a nice layer of green stuff around it, holding the glue together. And we'll just do the same with the other one. Make sure the green stuff's all pushed into the hole, and we've got the rubbish side of the wheel down to the floor. And then when that green stuff's cured, they will be super sturdy. I think the next thing we're going to tackle is going to be these arms. So these are untouched, but the torso, someone's already tried to put some pins in. but they're sort of off centre there, but most of the nub's still there. So I think I could probably get away with that as a connection point. It's not too bad. And here they've filed the nub entirely off. So there's nothing really to hold that, and the pin's off in the wrong place. It doesn't actually look like they've even tried to pin the arms. So this is probably never really going to hold together very well. I'm going to start with my little Tamiya handy drill. Love this thing. And I'm going to be a bit neater this time. I'm going to put the hole dead in the middle of this little knob. There we go, dead centre. And then the same on this side. And then we've got some 1mm florist's wire, tiny dab of glue on the end, snug that in there, and then we're using the pair of old snips just to take that extra length off. And same on the other side. Now I want to be a little bit more careful here because the centre of this hole is going to lead out somewhere under here, so I don't want to go all the way through if I can help it. I think we've got plenty of room, so let's see what happens. So that's enough of a hole that it's bitten, but not that I want to go all the way through. And there we go, that has fit on there perfectly. And that's without any glue. It's almost posable now. And then last but not least, we've got this head. Just going to use the end of this file just to make sure that all the residue's out of there. Kind of score that up a little bit. I think we've got enough connections there. That'll fit on quite nicely. So I'm just going to pop a dab of glue in his head hole. And I'm going to put a dab of glue on this neck part on the back here. Sort of spinal connection. This guy is awesome. I was a little bit worried we'd lost a bit of detail on the nose. Because the paint had worn off from there. It looked kind of flat, but actually no, I think that's fine, it looks good. Okay, I'm looking at the details on the big guy, and there's still a mould line here that I want to do something about. But while I was looking at that, I noticed this cannon, so I think these are meant to be cannons or something, poking out of his belt here. And this one's kind of missing some of the walls, so I've still got a bit of green stuff mixed up. We've got a tiny ball. I'm just going to pop that on there. I'm going to go in with this little metal tool, and I'm going to smooth the outside layer onto the metal. I'm just going to work out sort of the outside boundary of where this wants to be. And we've still got the teeth in place, it's just this bit we're trying to replicate. So I've probably got a little bit too much putty here, but we'll see. I'm just going to make the circle, and probably now the satisfying bit. I'm just going to jab it in there. And I'm going to remove the putty from the top under the teeth here, because we've already got that side. There we go, something a bit like that. And I think once that's painted, you won't necessarily know that there was an extra detail like that I've had to put in. So here he is all based up, he's looking pretty cool. And here's how I made the base. And this is how I made that base. This is just a bit of cork. It was a cork wall tile. I've stripped the glue off the back. And then we're just going to take a bit of glue on the shiny side and just pop that down. And then use a spike rather than a knife to remove any excess. And I made that second base for this guy, who will be joining us for the rest of this video. So as you can see, he's got completely different armaments to the one we started with, but otherwise it is the same, and I used all the same things to put him together. But you will notice one difference: he is missing his Khorne cow catcher. So I've been trying to remedy that using these Instamold molds. So I made a mold of this one, and these ones I made a few attempts to try and make sure I got it right. This one was a bit of a failed attempt. So this stuff you just put in some hot water and it becomes malleable and sort of soft, and then you can press things like this into it. It works best for single-sided molds like this. But I did manage to make this. So it's still a one-piece mold, albeit with a little door. And I made this of one of the rhinos. So here is a rhino like the one I made it of. And here is the cast I made.
So there's some obvious differences. This is a bit blobby. There's a few bits missing, but I think at this scale on the tabletop, I think it's good enough. I certainly wouldn't be making whole units out of them. It's just that I had 2 plastic rhinos left, and they're fielded in sets of 3s. So he is a perfectly usable stand-in. But anyway, so I made the little Khorne molds. And these are the sort of things I produced out of them. Including in some cases I just took some green stuff casts of just the middle. So I can chop that down. I've got a nice old Hammer style skull to use on stuff such as this half painted Land Raider. So that's cool. This one's from one of the first round, and I wasn't quite happy. There was always something that I wasn't quite happy with. It's quite hard to get the putty, which is a mixture of white milliput and green stuff. It's quite hard to get into the spikes, so they end up coming out a little bit weird. I had a bubble problem on this one's eye, so I had another attempt, upped the quantity of green stuff a little bit, and I actually got some much crisper results. It also helped that I knew what I was looking for the second time round. And looking at these now, I think I'm going to go with this one. I think that's the best of the bunch. So because this was made in a one-piece mould, obviously the back is where I sort of pushed it in, so you can kind of see my fingerprints and where I just pressed it all in. I also made this little dint, and that's to sit on this little bump, because this one had one. I'm going to use my knife first, and I'm going to just cut the excess away. Something like that. So I'll go around and remove all of that. So the reason why I use the mixture of the milliput and the green stuff is because you kind of get the best of both worlds. It's a lot more carvable than either one, really. It's a lot more flexible and less brittle. So the milliput's quite brittle. The green stuff's almost too flexible. So you kind of get the best of both worlds there. And things like this little thing here, I'm going to have to cut this out. And if I dug my knife into this like this and it was just milliput, that would probably just splinter apart. But because we've got that green stuff in there, that adds that flexibility. So there's my piece all tidied up and squared off, and I don't think that's looking too bad at all. I'm just going to pop that on there. So I'm going to go do a final check for any mould lines or connection points on these two, and then we're going to go and give them a undercoat. Okay, so both the Lords of Battle have had a grey and then a white undercoat. And I'm going to start them like I've started a lot of the vehicles for this army, with a big old brush and some of these flesh cherries red. And I'm going to daub this all over, head to toe, to give me a nice base colour to work on. Okay, so here they are all finished up. Basically just painted the same as all the rest of my battle engines. And I think it's pretty hard to tell, I mean, at a glance anyway, that this is the copied one. It's not quite as good as the other one, but when they're down on the table, I don't think it's ever going to be much of a concern. So I'm pretty happy with the way these guys ended up, and I can't wait to get them down on the table. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments. Maybe subscribe for more. And as ever, thanks for watching. Bye.